everyone, how's it going? Hope you're all doing great. Welcome to an episode of the Rails API series. In this episode right here, we're going to be starting to write some automated functional test for our controller. So in the previous episode, we tested our endpoint using paw, and basically what we're going to be doing is I'm going to show you guys how to create the equivalent of what we did in paw in code, in Ruby code, using the native test framework that comes with Rails. A lot of people want to use RSpec. You're welcome to go ahead and use RSpec. You can achieve the exact same thing. And my reasoning for using the one that comes default in Rails is because, well, it already works. And I don't need anything more. They're just tests. I have my philosophy on tests where, a test should be something which is quick. We do it very quickly. Like it takes 5 to 10, 5 minutes to write. And then basically it's done and we don't have to worry about it. So that's kind of like my philosophy on tests. So I don't want to spend a lot of time creating the test suite, like, setting up RSpec and all that stuff. What comes with Rails already works great. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to delete all of the auto-generated stuff. So for example, the context controller test, I'm going to go ahead and delete that. I don't want to have anything that I didn't create in here. So everything here is empty. Great. So I have all these model tests, but they've all been commented out. So I'm going to leave them there. Accounts, YAML, I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Contacts, delete that. Organizations, delete that as well. So the only thing I'm going to have left behind here is the users over here. So I'm going to remove user number 2 and I'm going to fill this out with the email, and it's going to be just some test user at example.com, and authentication is going to be blah 1 2 3 4 test or whatever confirmed at. So we don't want to have to confirm our user every time. Time.now is good. So basically that's pretty much all we need to do in terms of the user here in the fixture. So files, we don't need anything there. So what we're going to be doing now is going to create the controller test. So let's take a look at the target that we're trying to achieve. So over here we have this account. So I want to take our attention before we go ahead to another gem. So over here, if I go over into this one here, so this gem is a faker gem, and basically it allows us to just generate fake names or fake numbers or fake whatever for everything that we would probably need. So for example, we need some company name. This thing will generate it for us. So it'll do the LLC, or like it'll name it, it's close enough, right? So we don't have to think up and imagine our own names. Like it, how eventually it gets really old. This is all just pointless data. So we can use this faker gem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over into my gem file. So that's pretty much the only thing that I use that is kind of like not the default Rails. So let me just fix that as well. Acquire, great. So I'm going to bundle here real quick so we have that gem installed. And then so what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be creating that post request. So I'm going to go ahead and in V1 and create a file here called accounts controller test.rb. And basically we're going to be creating the test for this create action here. So we're just going to try and achieve one test, and I'm going to show you guys a few concepts in this one test, and basically after this we're going to be creating the test and to go with everything that we have over here. So I'm going to do a require. So before that, frozen literal, probably going to be a lot of typing in this episode, and require test helper. All right, so basically what we also want to do is have the module v1 end, and then basically have the class accounts controller test inherits from action dispatch integration end. All right, so that should work. So if you take a look at the documentation, the documentation for testing with Rails is really, really simple. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I like the default one that comes with Rails. Everything is here on one page. Like, there's really not much more we need to look at, in order to be able to create really comprehensive test suite. Like, everything is here on this page. So that's, I've discussed that in another episode that I did. So, I'm not going to go into more details than that, but it'll just work. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be loading the user. So remember, we made the user, the test user in the fixture, and basically we want to create the account for this user. So what we want to do is have a setup block. So setup, do, end. And then here what we're going to be is user equal users 1. So this will basically load that user from the fixture. And then what we can do is we can create a header equals, and then we want to use a x user email. So we want to simulate exactly what we did with PAW. So if you take a look at the header here, we pass in the x user email and x user token. We want to follow the same thing. So I'm showing you guys basically one step at a time how to replicate that from PAW to here as an integration test, basically. And so, right, so there we go. So now all we need to do is use user.email and then x user token, user.authentication token. That's pretty much all we need to do for the header, for the setup at least. So now we can actually create the test. So test creates account for user. And so we need to account params. So this is where the faker is going to come in. So we want the name. So faker company.name. And, if we look at the faker gem over here, what I want to show you guys as well is if we head back here, we want to do the company one here. So the company one, you can get the EIN number, so like tax IDs or whatever, it can generate it for you, which is great. So what I want to do here is taxpayer ID is faker company.ein. VAT rate is 7.0. VAT rage, I'm sure that's quite fitting, and there's some joke in there somewhere. All right, so we also need the address. So faker address dot street name should work. Then we also need the default currency, which is USD. There we go. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all we need in terms of the attributes. I don't think we're missing anything. So I'm just going to go into the DB schema to make sure that we have all the attributes we need. Yep, that's all we need. So that will be the params that we're going to use. So now we're going to actually make the request. So it's very simple. Post. And then here we can use the route helper. So v1 accounts path. And here we can pass in the headers. Params. So, it's very simple. So now we can just do account params. So the simplest way to make an assertion is assert response success. So if we run this test now, it should work. Let's give it a whirl. So Rails. So you see, it's just one command. It runs the test suite for us, and everything just works. So over here, I've got something wrong. Let me go and take a look at what we did wrong here. Action dispatch integration test. So I probably spelled all this wrong. Anyway, integration test, there you go. So that's pretty much all we need to do. I do Rails test and everything works. Great, so that's our first example test. So now we can clean this up just a tad so I can move this to the next line. all this to the next line like that. So we can go a little bit further than this, right? So we can actually, test that the response is exactly the way that we want it. So if you take a look at my browser, you can see I actually looked it up in here already just to see that nothing's changed. This is still the way to do it. And we don't actually need any extra tools because JSON is already supported in Rails. So what we can do is we can create an account equals json.parse response.body. And then here we're going to, once we parse it, we're going to go into our data account. And then now we can make more assertions. So we can go to assert account name equals account params name. So now if I do a Rails test, it says here account params. I spelled that wrong. My bad. All right, so everything is working. So this can also come in handy if you're like, if you need like to make sure that the response has a certain structure, you can do that here. You can write like as many lines of assertions as you want to make sure that it's returning the correct response. So maybe your client is expecting a certain attribute or whatever from a certain endpoint. You can do all that in here. So this is what we call an integration test, where it actually goes through and runs and goes to the controller and the view and return the result and everything, right? So integration tests are where it's simulating real life as closely as possible. It's not just you're testing one part of the app. Like it's really like it's making that call with the header, and then basically it's returning the response from the view that we created, and then we can test that against these assertions. So this is really, really awesome, right? So what I'm going to do from here on out is I'm going to quickly write all these tests for the updating. So for the updating, for example, we already need to have an account that we need to update, an existing account that we have to update. So chances are we probably need to create the fixture for an existing account that references the user. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that in the next couple of episodes. So I'm going to do like a demo for writing these tests, a couple of tests just so we cover every scenario or most of the scenarios that are common. And then basically if you guys have any edge cases you want to test, you can look that up and do that on your own. But I want to build a base of how to set up this test suite. You can see that it happened, we did it really in like 10 minutes or a little bit more than 10 minutes here. And it's very simple. Everything is working. We can test our code. And it's lovely to have this, and so, yeah, with that, I want to wrap this episode up. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Also become a member to get access to, more testing episodes if you want, if that's what you're into. Also take a look at what we have, in the previous couple of episodes, in our whole Rails API series. And also take a look at the React Foundation. We actually consume this API using a React front end. So take a look at that as well. If you become a member, you get access to everything. And yeah, it's a buffet. Watch as many videos as you want and the time that you have. With that, I'm going to wrap it up, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.